Cole Whiston from Blue Jays Center here with the one and only Toronto Blue Jays reporter, MLB.com's Keegan Matheson, and Nova Scotia's own Keegan Matheson, taking some time today to talk to us about the Blue Jays going into the 2025 season.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
You know just as well as I do, I would be remiss if I didn't start with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Because that is the story of spring. That was the story of the offseason. The Jays did not come to an agreement. And despite Vladdy's deadline of negotiations, he sure seems to be, quote unquote, negotiating still at every given point, talking to the media. So I want to hear your thoughts initially on this Vladdy saga that we're going through.
It's not going away, man. No matter how many times he said he did not want this to be a distraction, it was always going to be. You're not going to avoid this all season. And the last couple of weeks has not helped anything. I don't know who the hell benefits from this being public. I really don't. I do not think that helps anyone involved. And I wouldn't just say this about Vladdy and the Blue Jays. I'd say this about any team in any negotiation in any sport. Publicly negotiating, or at least having a back and forth appear to be happening publicly, it doesn't benefit anybody. If the ultimate goal is for these two sides to get together and sign a deal, whether it's this week, next week, or more likely on like December 10th, this doesn't benefit anybody. And as this continues to leak out and drip out, it creates a force of its own at this point. And I think today's a good example. Like, we're here talking, it's Thursday, March 13th. I last spoke to Vladdy about it on February 18th, which is deadline day. That's probably the last time that I actually wrote a main story about it, like a story of the day about it. I've been asked a million times on TV and radio, so you keep talking about it. But I haven't chosen to chase him down or go out of the way since then because I didn't think any information had changed. And I don't like wasting anybody's time, my own and Vladdy's included. But as this continues, to come back into the spotlight, and it continues to pop up, first with a Spanish language interview with ESPN, in which he said, "No, it wasn't even $600 million bucks. No problem." Then it pops up again with near simultaneous reports, which always raises my eyebrow, from the New York Post and the Athletic, about where the offers were, about what Vladdy wanted, and about how high the Blue Jays were, how close it was. I don't even like how a lot of that's been interpreted, frankly, because the narrative coming out of reporting, and the conversation that's exploded out of that is, hey, they're 50 million bucks apart. It's not that simple. It's not at all. There are bonuses, escalators. Think of, for example, in the Soto contract. Yeah, he can opt out, but they can keep him and it jumps up a bit. That's what I mean by escalators. And of course, deferrals, which the Blue Jays, I believe, are open to. Vladdy, not so much through the process. There are so many other things at play. It's not a quick and simple, hey, it's just 50 million bucks. But clearly, somebody involved wants that to be the conversation. And to a certain extent, they're succeeding, because that's the conversation we're hearing from 10 different places. It's just 50 million bucks. Yeah, it's closer than a lot of folks thought a month ago, but it's not like you're $5 away. So this has been strange. It's going to continue to be strange. And man, I think of this in media terms. You know, I know it's a hard line to walk, because I'm saying that this is a story and that that's a bad thing while being a guy writing the story. But sometimes you got to. Today's a good example of that. It became enough of a story again where I have to write this. And what I've said a few times now, Cole, is when we start the season, I was thinking about this. I was sitting on the couch behind me the other night, booking my travel, my flights and hotels for the season. First road trip is New York Mets. It's going to happen there. We go from there to Boston. It's going to happen there. Late April, April 20-something, New York Yankees. And in every one of those cities, the those writers, those TV people in that city walk across the field, they're going to ask John Schneider about it. They're going to try to talk to Vladdy about it. If Vladdy won't talk, that means his teammates get asked about it. Becomes headlines everywhere, man. It's not going to go
Yep.
away. It's going to pick up steam. And all of this, nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
The information has not changed. There's just more chatter about it.
Yeah. First, I want to say I'm right with you. That's where my initial thoughts were, which then brings up another perspective that somebody from Blue Jay Center has. We discussed it on the podcast last night. I sat very much in your camp. This is annoying. You made it seem like you didn't want it to be a distraction, and now you're the cause to why this continues to be a distraction. I don't see how this is going to work out. It gave me Vince Carter vibes. But then Rob offered up a different perspective. This is the way business is done in professional sports at this level. When you are teetering on free agency and you're looking for every dollar that you're worth, playing the media is exactly what you do. So in his defense, Vlad has every right to do that because these are billionaire owners. What do we care if it's costing them an extra $50 million, which is where Vlad is coming from? Players get paid. I'm all in that camp as well. So Rob's conclusion is this. Because of these tactics and the way this is going to unfold over the course of this season, regardless really on how this season goes, come December of next year, the only team that is going to be willing to overpay to the point of signing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be the team that has the motivation and has been receiving backlash for 6 years, if we're being completely honest, but definitely 12 months, if we're being completely generous. It'll be the Toronto Blue Jays. So he thinks it ends with the Jays paying above market value, just like they were going to now, but above market, what the market actually tells us come next year, and Vladdy will be a Toronto Blue Jay come 2026. I want to hear what you have to say about that, and if you think that it's the correct way of thinking.
Risky. 5D chess, man. I think it's important for the Blue Jays to hold on to the tiebreaker at this point. That's what they still have. Vladdy likes Toronto, likes Canada, and he has a genuine desire to have the legacy of a guy who played forever in one city. Those things are real, but they don't matter much.
Right. Clearly.
The money's always going to win.
Yeah.
What the Blue Jays have right now, and it's something that they do not always have, is the tiebreaker of if it gets to next offseason. We've seen this with Soto. We've seen it with Ohtani. At the end of these big pursuits, there's typically 2 or 3 teams in the exact same range. So let's say that we're next December. 3 different teams have offers on the table for Vladdy for 14 years, 480 or something like that.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays hold that tiebreaker right now. But if this relationship dissolves, that can change pretty quickly. And I look at this now from a standpoint of what would have to happen for it to go in either side's direction. What would have to happen this season for Vladdy to make more money than we're talking about right now? He'd have to hit 1,000 home runs. It's a top 1%. Like, he's got to win an MVP award.
Yeah.
For this to go easily above. Now, granted, I thought Ohtani was going to get 500. I thought Soto was going to get, 500.
Less than the two-way player. Yeah.
Exactly. So you never know where money's going to go, especially as money is growing in Major League Baseball, which is good. But Vladdy has to have a elite season, a perfect season, for this number to increase. Look at this from the Blue Jays side, and there's a lot of ways that this number can come back towards them. And part of their approach to this, and part of, I hate valuation and discipline and all these dumb, big 4-syllable words that we throw around about teams, trying to set a limit on how much they're going to spend. But part of their play could be, listen, we will take that risk. A little bit of a risk of you playing out this season and let the market have a seat at the table next year. Right now, it's just Vladdy and the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
2 sides going against each other. Let the market sit at the table. Let the Red Sox, let the Mets, let the Angels, let the Rangers sit at the table. if they all sit down at that table and are saying numbers way lower than this, okay, stuff starts to drop.
Yep.
Vladdy is a first baseman,
Yep. And
and
one
that's a
dimensional.
different market.
Yeah.
So again, that's not saying it's going to crater. He's too good, but there is, I can see that's the way to put it. If you shook up a box with 100 potential outcomes for this season, I think there's more outcomes that move this price down than up.
Yep.
Vladdy's got to have a hell of a season for this to move up. And that's why I think the Blue Jays are still not comfortable. Nobody's comfortable, but are at least holding that line and not just saying, screw it, take the money.
Yep. Yep. I think that's a perfect way of putting it. And as in, you're $50 million away in the red. If you take the risk, what you're saying and what I agree with is you could be 100 million in the green come next year because the price all of a sudden went down to 400 or went down to
Yeah.
350, right? Because
Also, when did $50 million become not a lot of money? Like I get that it's over 14
I
years.
know,
This
I
is me
know,
being a cheap old Maritimer, I guess. But like, when the hell
yeah,
did we start discussing that so casually? It's
I know,
that's not
I
being me
know.
being pro ownership. I mean, my Bell phone plan works great. I should say it's great, but it's it's been a little flippant. How I've been surprised. That's the way I'll say it, and probably shouldn't say too much more. But I have been surprised at how that number has been treated and discussed. It's been a little weird to me.
Yep, I don't disagree. And when we bring up a $300 million player, that segues us to the second best player on our team, which is also heading to free agency, Bo Bichette, who I think everybody going into 2024 was like, lock that guy down. He deserves $300 million. Vladdy's been quite volatile. This guy's led the league and he led the AL in hits back-to-back years. He's the most consistent guy on this team. Then all of a sudden he has a hot spring, which is why spring training doesn't matter, and he craters and has his worst season. And now nobody's even discussing extending Bo Bichette, and on top of that, are counting him as good as gone. I want to know where you sit on that. You were one of the first, I would say, Jays insiders at the top level to kind of bring it up. Like at some point, we got to have a Bo Bichette conversation because he is still heading to free agency and he is still a major priority on this team. If Andres Gimenez is not the replacement. So,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on Bo Bichette heading into a contract year?
I think that in 3 or 4 weeks, people are talking about him constantly. I think this flips a lot. And this is a good example. This time last year, I mean, I guarantee you that there are 20 radio stations and TV networks with audio of me saying this last year. A year ago today, I would have been saying, is Vladdy an elite player or just a really good one?
Right.
And I think that was fair at the time. He had had a
It
couple,
was.
he had the elite season, but then is he 2021 or is he more of a 850 OPS, like really good player, but that's it?
Yeah.
And at the same time, Bo Bichette looked like the most predictable player on the Blue Jays. And if you are handing out hundreds of millions of dollars, you want predictable. You want to know exactly what you are getting, especially this front office. That all changed completely. This spring, Bo looks incredible. And I've been around Bo enough and I've been around enough ball players at this point where I know, I shouldn't say I know, I have a slightly better feel than I used to of when I should believe in things that I see. I've been around guys who just kind of kick it around, but they've got natural talent and it works. Then I see Bo working like a maniac every day. That didn't change last year, and I think sometimes that season got the best of him. John Schneider always says Bo's his toughest critic. That works against him sometimes. That can eat you
Yes.
up. I think it did at times last year. But he is, in my opinion, going to be the most motivated player in baseball this year. And one bad season with 50 recurring calf injuries is not going to make me discount an entire player's career up to this point. I think Bo Bichette's a hell of a baseball player, and I think he's going to be that for a very long time. I just don't know what the hell you would offer him right now, honestly. I think he's a great example of, you know, the Blue Jays or any team trying not to spend all the money in the world would point to last year. Bo and his representation would point to everything else. I think they've got a better argument, but I don't really know what you'd offer him right now. I think with a good season, suddenly his floor becomes the Willy Adames contract,
Mhm.
up in that range. But you never know. If he has another calf injury and misses half the year, where the hell does it go then? It's a huge range of outcomes. But I
Yep.
think that a good and healthy Bo Bichette, which he looks like so far, is a fantastic baseball player who is going to get talked about real quick again. And probably get to the point where, my God, it's not going to be long until I'm having people say to me, you know what? They should actually keep Bo instead. It's going to happen.
Yep.
That conversation of would you rather Bo at X or Vladdy at Y is going to happen, which
Yep.
was just such a tragic and crappy ending to this era of Blue Jays baseball, man, isn't it? That's
Yep.
not how it's supposed to end.
Nope. No, and
Because
that's why I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm
yeah,
going to put you on the spot. Give me a percentage on the likelihood of each re-signing with the Jays. Each one individually.
last season working
On,
under
on
the
typical years too. Like so
yeah,
Vladdy puts up a
like
6.4.
normal years.
Right. Bo puts up a 5.4. Yeah.
Normal years and both reaching free agency. Now, when you're reaching free agency, you've automatically you're down to a low percentage. Give me and aggregators, close your ears right now. I don't want to see this on the score with a crappy graphic. Let me see. Give me Vladdy at 30. Let's give him like a one third, 33%.
Okay.
And put Bo back down more in the 10-15% because I think there'll be more teams involved there. I don't feel like he's as likely as Vladdy. And I think that sets up, if you do the math, which I was never able to do, that sets up on a kind of 50-50. If you keep one of them, you're happy. I don't think, as much as Blue Jays fans would like to keep both and they grow old together and, lay down holding hands at age 40 with their 10th World Series, it's not going to happen. So I think if you keep one of them, I think a lot of folks are happy with that.
Yep.
And it's about where I'd put it now. And yeah, when I look wrong in a year, we'll go back and scrub this audio. We'll dub it over, but that's about it.
Okay, I like that. I like both percentages. I think those are very fair. But let's now focus on what's happening this year, 2025. The team that we have going into this year that, by all accounts, is supposed to compete for a wild card spot at the end of this year. And part of that is going to have to include the new additions. Max Scherzer, Andres Gimenez, Anthony Santander. I think, in my opinion, the best addition this offseason was trading a 27-year-old one-time breakout player for a 5-WAR consistent middle infielder that you just know what you're getting kind of thing, with also entering his age 26 season, already signed to term. I think a lot of people would say it was Anthony Santander because they've missed the home run ball, and I get it. I think Santander on a good year probably replaces the Teoscar Hernandez production. And then Max Scherzer is a wild card, but if you're going to bet on anybody, bet on one of the best pitchers of the 21st century. I want to know from you your thoughts on those three signings and who do you think was the best addition this offseason?
I think people would be way more excited about Jimenez if it had happened in February.
Yeah.
It's all because Jimenez happened at the winter meetings when everybody wanted Juan Soto and Corbin Burns and Max Fried and everybody else.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, what the hell? You got another second baseman and another guy who plays defense. Like, really, dude? But that got skewed, the optics, in my brain as well.
Yeah.
Because Andres Gimenez is an incredible baseball player. And I think he's going to be like immediate fan favorite, like a souped up Orlando Hudson, incredible defender. Like, people are going to love his style of play.
Yeah.
It's fast as hell. People love speed guys on the bases. Is he going to hit? We'll see. But infield Dalton Varsho is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And if Bo moves on next year, part of me thinks you just leave him at second base as an elite second baseman, but he could be
Really?
a long-term shortstop. I think that second baseman, and Kevin Gausman spoke about this the other day. Now that you can't shift heavily to either side, having a second baseman with some real range is pretty damn important right now. And if you can leave him there, maybe. But Santander made sense all along. It was almost like a boring wait for it to happen. And I like the deal. I like the money on that. And
Yeah.
frankly, I love the Scherzer deal, man. Like you said, if you're going to bet on anyone, why the hell not Max Scherzer? And he's looked real good lately. Hopefully this thumb thing is nothing. Doesn't sound like anything at this point.
Yeah.
But I thought they had a solid enough offseason. It's a B offseason. Now, everyone will hear that and say it doesn't matter without Vladdy, and you're right. But you
Right.
had to do something.
Hmm.
I don't know if the bullpen's there yet.
Hmm.
That's something you can beef up the deadline if you're close enough. I still think they're a bat away, which also means you're a bad day from being two bats away. But
Right.
so are a lot of teams. I like the additions, and this is something I need to remember in future off seasons. I think the order it happened in mattered because when Jimenez happened, it was just so not my top 1,000 guesses. Like this fake insider stuff where people try to like, oh yeah, the Jays were in on him. Shut up. I no, didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the media workroom at the winter meetings in Dallas or wherever I was in Texas and seeing it pop up and reading it 5 times, thinking, what? But now when I look at it and I see him fitting into this team, I think it's a fantastic move, especially for the price they paid.
Yeah.
Great business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the Spencer Horwitz thing was so funny because people were like, "Oh my God, he was just breaking out. He's a legit bat in this lineup." But no, he was 20. He was 27 years old going into his age 28 season. We got a guy 2 years younger who is just better than him. But that brings me to who's the Spencer Horwitz of 2025. And this year we have, I think, a ton of options, and one of them needs to work out. The odds are one of them does work out, but one of them needs to work out. Like you said, we need another bat in this lineup. The names are Alan Rodin, Aurelvis Martinez, and Will Wagner at the top of that list. And despite the fact that it seems like all three of them are having a good spring, Alan Rodin seems to be getting the most coverage because he's been doing the most consistent work. But then the report comes out that he's still on the outside looking in for an opening day spot. That kind of surprised me, knowing that this team is one bat away. So I want to hear your thoughts on how this is going to get solved and who's going to be the first name up, and why is it not going to be on opening day?
It's an awkward fit with Santander and Springer right now.
Okay.
If Varsho starts on the IL, maybe you get creative with that. But I think in the current structure with Santander and Springer in the corners and a couple of other outfielders, like if you're going to chase offense against lefties with David Schneider, second base is plugged now. That used to be the rotation spot, but it's plugged.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to be in a corner too. And do you want to
Well,
have Alan
third
Roden up playing a
is third.
few?
So, but third's still a rotational spot.
A little bit, but I would
Okay.
keep that to Clement and a bit of Will Wagner, maybe.
Okay.
There's just not as much movement and flexibility as there once was. I think that's a good thing. I like it when guys are good at one position and they play it.
Yep.
Call me old-fashioned. But I think that Alan Roden, like, listen, Ross Atkins doesn't single guys out. I have stood there 10,000 times as he lists 20 names. And by
Mm-hmm.
name number 10, I'm standing there thinking, dude, that guy's never going to play in the big leagues. Like, I know we need to make everyone feel good, but you're not listed big leaguers anymore. Alan Roden's a big leaguer, period. And he got called out by the GM. He has nailed it. He is a dream Blue Jays prospect in terms of like what this org likes, kind of Spencer Horwitz-esque with that. He's the type of guy this organization likes to develop. Elite zone control, elite plate approach. There's a little bit more power there too. Like he's built, man. Like he's not, he's not Jim Thome. He's not a big slugger from the left side, but he's built. He's really strong. There's enough in there to do something with. If he could play some center, that would really open this up early in the season. But somehow, eventually, this needs to happen. What I've learned over the years is that it's just going to happen eventually. It's someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to
Right.
someone's going to
Right.
something will happen. I've wasted a lot of time over the years mapping out, well, if this guy, if the, something's going to happen.
Mm.
And Alan Roden, I think he has a legitimate shot at the opening day. Like this isn't a 0% thing at all,
Good.
especially in a year where the Jays need to be aggressive and need their best 26 players on the roster.
Yeah.
Aurelvis Martinez gets to that exact same discussion. I think you should light his glove on fire and DH him.
Yeah.
That's what he's good at. It's what he loves. And it's how he can help this team right now. There's not really a DH. Let him crush lefties. If he falls on his face in April, back to AAA. But if he catches fire, he is someone who can actually raise the ceiling. This team has enough floor. They have 10 layers of floor. But Aurelvis can raise the ceiling.
Yep.
You got to take the odd risk on that. And in past years, maybe you're a little more hesitant. You let him develop more. Who cares?
Who
Like
cares?
this is Vladdy and Bo's last year, and I'm trying to come back to this point mentally more often. if this is their last year and you have to operate like it is, go crazy. Do whatever the hell you can to win every game. Because if you end up like this was in 2021 with that great lineup and you're a game short at the end of the season, that will haunt this organization forever.
Yep.
Like, they cannot afford to prioritize development or anything like that. Relvis can learn to play defense next year. I don't care. Alan Roden, if he's good enough to play, play the dude. Not only
Yep.
is he really good, he's smart and he's mature. I've been around enough prospects who are talented, but either dumb or a bit of an idiot, and you have trouble trusting them. I would trust Alan Roden 10 days a week. So
Yep.
I think those conversations need to be more aggressive this year. And you got to have your best 26 guys from day one. You always do, but Jesus, especially this year.
Yeah, and I think that DH spot should be treated like a rotational spot.
Mm.
Anthony Santander can DH. Alan, if you want Alan Roden on your roster and you want him in the everyday lineup, then play him in the corner outfielder and
He's
DH one of your
Santander's not
corner
winning a Gold
outfielders.
Glove. You want to let him play if he wants to, keep him involved, but he's
Yeah,
not Dalton Varsho.
yeah,
DH looks just as good.
yeah. And bringing up the corner outfielder, I mean, what do we do with George Springer? He hasn't looked good in the spring. He
Yeah,
hasn't looked good in probably a year and a half. But he's on the books for $20+ million. What do you do with Springer?
great question. And and speaking of things we're going to hear about all season,
Yeah,
that's one.
yeah.
Now, I'm trying to think of what a realistic good outcome would be for George Springer and the Blue Jays. Maybe if he is hitting 4, 5, 6 range, chasing a little more power. Yeah, maybe the average won't be there, but if you can run into a few home runs along the way and you hit 25, you hit 28, and maybe the Blue Jays can target some days against right-handed pitching to keep him off. If you're only going
Hmm.
to play 125, 130 games, try to target as many lefties as you can.
Yeah.
Because with George, I would be looking at bat speed, at how he is squaring up these pitches, at exit velocities. It gets tough because for a hitter at this age, and this isn't a knock on George, it's the reality of being a human being trying to hit $100 million pebble coming at you. It doesn't get easier. And as you lose just 1% of your swing speed, suddenly, instead of barreling up the ball, you're just a little bit behind. And then you're popping it up. And it's tough to fight back from that. So I hope for him that he can lean into a bit of a different identity as a hitter. I hope that David Popkins, the new hitting coach, can be good for him. We haven't seen it yet. And if the season starts slowly, let's say he's hitting 190 through the first 4 weeks, it's going to be a daily conversation and it's going to be really uncomfortable.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. We just got the notification that we got 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna get to some fan questions in
All right.
our post, and
Yep.
then we're gonna finish it off with, of course, your upcoming book.
You got her.
So one of the questions in the comments section was, who's our opening day starter? Because it's not an obvious choice this year. I personally lean the same guy you went with last year, which is Jose Barrios, but which I think should be the obvious choice, and it looks like you agree.
Barrios opening day, Gosman best starter.
Okay, gotcha.
I think Gosman's gonna have a hell of a year. I really,
Okay.
but
I love
Barrios,
to
he's
hear
rock
that.
solid. He represents the best of the blue. Like he's a great, I feel like I'm turning into Ross Atkins. Great teammate, great, but he really does represent everything the Jays do want to represent, and a guy with that much consistency. He's earned it, but I think Kevin Gosman has the best year.
Okay. Your favorite current uniform combination
Oh
for the
man,
Jays? For the Jays.
not the new blues. I like the
Really?
classic. I think I still like the white on white jerseys. Now, give
Yeah.
me like World Series era white on white, full white jerseys with the blue and the panel up top. I'm not a new blue guy. I'm not a total hater either. It's just not my jam. I want it to look a little more like the Chargers powder blues type thing. There's just something's off about the blue because my
Okay.
opinion on fashion really matters. But yeah, I've always loved kind of the World Series era white on white. It looks so clean with just like the pops of color. But yeah, I'm still a traditionalist, and it shows the dirt best too. It's a aesthetic from a baseball standpoint. But yeah, my apologies to the Blue Jays organization for not saying the night mode City Connects, but I'll call them my number two, I guess.
Yeah, I think the powders would look better on white pants.
The night mode ones did grow on me though, and I think the hats are
I
fun.
know.
The hats have some staying power.
Yeah.
The entire point of this is to sell more jerseys. Let's be real, but I like the hats. They can stick around. They grew on me.
Good. Arjun Namala, one of the most talked about prospects in baseball, but also he's a little bit away. And I guess that's what I want to ask is, do you see his ETA 2026 or 2027?
He's going to start in Vancouver. I'm quite confident. If he touches Double A by the end of the year, maybe he's early 2027.
Okay.
I think, if all goes well, we'll
If
see.
all goes well, of course. Of
He's
course.
impressive as hell. He's 19 years old. If you had given me that money and put cameras in my face at 19, my career would have been over in 5 seconds, man. He is a grown-up. He's an adult. And
Okay.
I use that as the highest form of praise for a prospect because not a lot of guys are. And I spoke to him just yesterday about his season last year. And right off the top, he was like, listen, man, like lots of big leaguers struggle early on. Derek Jeter struggled. And I said, hell yeah, man. Like, I love it when a prospect comes at it like that. He
Yeah.
really took it well. I've seen what it looks like when a prospect doesn't struggle, and then gets their ass kicked in the big leagues. They fail. He's
Hmm.
learned how to bounce back from that. So impressed by him. So impressive physically. Such an impressive young man. I'm high on him. I'm really excited to see what he does.
Me too. Your walk-up song, if you had one.
Oh man. Like Scotland the Brave. I would have a bagpiper walking next to me up the home plate, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
Savannah Bananas. Okay.
There would have to be some sort of bagpiping, like Reel and Roll by Rollins Cross. It would have to be some sort of bagpipe interlude. But I think a slow build Scotland the Brave, and like I'm aware I'm a larger man. I would just want to be that nut job DH with a cheek of tobacco out here while a bagpiper slowly plays. I think I can get in the right pitcher's head. I wouldn't be able to hit, but they might throw me 4 balls.
I agree. That's awesome. And finally, the franchise, Toronto Blue Jays.
Hey,
Keegan Matheson's book coming out June 3rd,
maybe.
2025. Let's hear it.
Thank God it's done. I tell you. I'm excited for this, man. At this time last year, and it's funny, some of my colleagues have slowly started to be honest with me about how stressed I was last year. I don't think anyone wanted to poke me at the time, but a lot of them are saying, wow, like you're a lot better to be around this year. I know I'm probably still a little cranky, but um, this has been, dude, honest to God, not a marketing ploy because I don't know how to do that. It's been the most fun I've had in my whole career. And it's completely changed this job for me because I look at the job more with more joy now, and like I get excited about the stories more now. I made the mistake earlier in my career, man, of getting a little too in my head, a little too bitter about baseball and keeping it work, you know? And I've learned to love it again by doing this book, man. It's the way I describe it is that yes, it's the whole history of the Blue Jays, but if it was every story, this book would suck. So I've been able to be picky and selective. Yes, it goes back to the early years of Exhibition Stadium, of building Skydome, of how things got started here in Dunedin, but I'm picky. You don't need to know about every meeting that happened and every single player. There's also a lot of features on faces of the franchise, on some of the managers, the star players. But then what I really enjoyed also was some of the moments I've been around for. Because listen, dude, I've written the Joe Carter home run story 1,000 times. This book was 1,001, and I think people will like it. But I also wanted some stories to be fresh things that I've been around for. Examples of that being the Shohei Ohtani saga, every single thing that happened in that. I had a lot of fun with that chapter. The COVID years, when I was one of the only people down here in Dunedin and in Buffalo, a city that I love but hope to never see again, for those strange, strange days. And some of the experiences I've been around where I hope I can take people, a little behind the curtain, a little further than we've been. And it's again, man, I'm excited about it. I hope people I can I hope the Blue Jays still have people excited about it by midseason because I'm aware that's what's going to matter. But I'm just thrilled for it to be in people's hands, man, because I have read this damn thing so many times to edit it, to go through it. So I'm thrilled, man. I'm so thrilled that people are going to get a chance to soon, and I've been completely overwhelmed by pre-orders and people showing me their orders. It just, dude, it means the world to me. It gets me emotional when I see it almost. It's getting me down.
That's a major achievement. Congratulations,
Thanks,
Keegan.
man.
I can't wait to read it myself, and I don't read books. So
That's like the most common response, and I love it. We're gonna bring back reading, you know? It's
yeah.
we're bringing back reading with one baseball book. This is all it took, you know? TikTok's dead, Instagram's dead. No, everyone's back to books now.
That's awesome. I don't want to get cut off, so appreciate your time. I will hopefully get you again before the season because I had a laundry list of things that I wanted to get to that I do think are still important to the Blue Jays Center community. So
Anytime.
hopefully we can get you before the season, or at least in the early days of opening week. So appreciate your time, Keegan. Thank you for coming on.
Always, brother. Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.